All right, and we are live. Hello, and welcome to Ask Lovecraft After Dark. This is our not our very first. This is our fourth episode of the entire Ask Lovecraft After Dark, what have you. But it is the very first solo episode where it's just me tonight, guys. It's just going to be me and you and your friend there and whoever else you decided to bring along. It's going to be a little more freeform, a little more seat of the pants. I don't have someone to bounce ideas off of except, well, you guys. So if you are watching and you're on YouTube, you can go to the little chat window. I think it should be on the right side. I don't know. I've got the whole sort of setup, which I think is a little different from how you all are going to be interacting, but that's there. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, things you want to throw out at me, I threw out some questions earlier into the group, and I'll be probably looking through those. But otherwise, yeah, I think I just want to take this time to once again thank y'all. I made that video a little while back, more explicitly thanking everyone. But this has been a roller coaster. I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around the direction the show's going in. I mean, I do that all the time. I'm always wrapping my head around it. But specifically in the wake of all the Channel Awesome, what have you, and if you guys are getting tired of hearing about Channel Awesome, I'm sorry, but it was not a lot happens with the show, and that was a pretty big thing that did happen. Both getting onto the show, onto Channel Awesome, and then deciding eventually to leave. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out what the ramifications of all that will be. There's some interesting projects that are potentially coming down the pike with some former Channel Awesominos, and we're all still in contact with each other. We're all still sort of chatting and kind of trying to figure out what we want to do, because we're all in the same boat as far as having access to this site with all of its problems, with all of its weirdness, but that did act as a boost and a platform for our show. Prior to being on Channel Awesome, my episodes, would be in the kind of the 100, 200 views, and that shot up, that double, that triple. I would start getting 1,000 views, and I'm certainly, as you guys know, from my love of charts and my love of sharing my charts with you, I'm certainly seeing a dip, but I'm also seeing bumps, and I think some of that's the controversy bump, which I'll certainly drink to, but. It's going to be a question of what happens. Am I going to kind of go back to how things were before? It didn't help that I tried to do something nice and released a whole bunch of the private Fungi from Yugoth poetry readings. I thought I would sort of surprise folks, like, here's this nifty thing you guys can choose to watch. And as I was making them public, it was spamming all of you. You all got like 37 emails in a row. And I wasn't aware that it was spamming. And I'm really sorry, especially since I lost like a whole bunch of subscribers who understandably didn't want to be spammed by me. That's okay. I don't want to be spammed. If I suddenly checked my email and had 37 notifications from Shut Up and Sit Down or any of the other shows that I subscribe to, I would be put out. Shut Up and Sit Down, by the way, is a fantastic show. If you are interested in board gaming, I do not have any official partnership with them. They do not pay to sponsor me. I don't have any sponsors. I need to get on that. Let me know if you want me to sell out to you. I will sell out as quick as I can. The only people who reach out to me are really sketchy content agglomeration like organizations, like people wanting to set up networks and then run very targeted advertisement. And since I don't run ads through YouTube, and maybe I'm dumb to not run ads through YouTube, but I've not been very comfortable with that. Also, that now there's a whole bunch of folks who do the same kind of weird content farming, but for apps. And they're like, you sign up for the app and then you can charge people what you want. I'm like, I'm not charging people. This is my show. And if folks want to, support the show through Patreon, if folks want to buy t-shirts, if folks want to pester their local cons to fly me out, then that's how they reward me. That's how they show their love. But the idea of joining up with these networks really is not fun. I know, right? Okay, so Crashmancer in the comment says, it occurs to me as you wave around that glass that there's an opportunity for wine product placement. Well, I actually, in some way, was supported by a wine company. There was a Lovecraft winery, and the guy who ran it pretty much paid for me to come out to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival in San Pedro, California. This was the spring of 2016, I think. So 2 years ago. I got to go out, and that was an absolute blast. I got to be part of their live stream and was interviewing folks. I got to meet a whole bunch of folks that I sort of knew online. Lee Joyner, who's a really great makeup artist and sculptor. If I weren't sort of plugged in here, I'd go and grab the bust of Lovecraft that he gave me, that I have sort of staring down above my TV. Got to meet Mike Griffin, got to meet Mike Davis, got to meet Sam Cohen, got to meet Ross Lockhart. I mean, a lot of these folks are people that I'd seen at Necronomicon, and maybe you have no idea who they are, but if you're sort of in the Lovecraftian world, these are all cool guys to know. Got to meet John Skip, who apparently worked on one of the really bad Friday the 13th movies. No, Nightmare Before Christmas. Not Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Like the Dream Mancers, Dream something. I don't know. I haven't watched them. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that was all supported through this guy's wine business, and it was a blast. But that's been as close as I've come to a wine sponsorship. There is a whole like Lovecraft beer line put out by the Narragansett, I don't know how to pronounce that, brewing company. I think based out of Rhode Island. Anyway, but they're there, and if they want to, send me a keg, I'll drink it on the air. Shoot. But yeah, trying to find a way to do the show and make the show work. It's always a challenge, right? And trying to figure out growth for the show and what constitutes success and what constitutes sort of making it. I remember when the show was getting a dozen views and I was excited. I remember being excited when I would break 100, and now, ever on a video. And now if I don't break 100 in like the first 2 hours, I'm like, oh no, this video is ruined. I'm throwing my life away. And I have no control over it. The episodes that really take off because someone of moderate fame retweets it or publishes it on Live Journal or something, or in the case of, I think my most watched video is still my really tortured reading of The Raven, which I did around the time my daughter was born. So it's really, I'm reading it way too fast and really in a sort of sleep deprived manner. But that got picked up by some online heavy metal station. They played it and linked to it, and so it is still like one of my number one episodes. So I have very little, but I'm saying is I have very little control over it, right? I put my stuff out there. I put a lot of stuff out there, and this was, I hope that I hope that a star will rise, and that it won't just sort of fall to the earth. But it's, I really have such little control. I spam as much as I can. Obviously, I spam a lot of folks with my poetry, but I don't want to just be constantly just retweeting and posting to Facebook and messaging people and just going crazy, because that eats up a lot of goodwill real fast. And I don't like to go into other people's houses and spam there, so every now and then I'll go over to the Lovecraft Reddit and I'll post something. Every now and then I'd go to the easing board and post something if it's more general and less niche. Some of my episodes get really niche. This week is a very niche episode, guys. Although we have an amazing special guest star. She just published it, so this is a little exclusive for you guys. Sonia is back, baby, and she is, let me see if I can find the link. She wanted to respond to Howie being trapped in the closet, and she made a video, and we're gonna be playing with that. I wasn't planning on having that be a part of Friday's episode, but now it kind of has to be. This is the same actor who played Sonia. When was that? That was also maybe 2016. But that whole, she decided she was going to have Sonia also be reanimated, and that was really cool. And I got to do some really strange things with Lovecraft, running, fleeing into the woods, and yeah. So I'm gonna probably share that on the main page tomorrow, and then Friday there will be the official response to that. So yeah, it's a weird thing I do. It's a weird thing I do on this program, trying to sort of figure out what folks will like, what folks won't like, and generally I go by gut when I'm going through the emails to decide which episodes I'm going to do. My I don't really have a hard and fast rubric. I try to not do ones that I've just received. I try to go back to the backlog and find stuff that's different from things I've done more recently. So I don't want to do two big pop culture things in a row. I don't want to do two things that are sort of social justice-y in a row. I know it's funny, the idea of Lovecraft doing social justice, but he's learning, and it's my platform, and I get to propagandize as I so choose. I don't want to do too much pH in a row. I try to like really sort of parse that out. Although I think that we had a lot of pH recently. I've been having some fun with that. And yeah, it's just the entire process is weirdly alchemical and hard to explain, and probably doesn't make any sense. But it's fun, and it's weird, and I like the funness, and I like the weird, and I think you guys do too, because you're responding. And one of the things I wanted to get to was, in light of all that happened with Channel Awesome, all that happened with that kind of imploding, is that really kicked me in the pants and made me much more interested and much more sort of aware of the need to engage. So views may be going down, but I feel like that mythical engagement is going up. By creating the Facebook group, creating a place where folks can come and share amazing art and music and talk about the show and talk about Lovecraft. And I have a certain degree of control, so I can keep out unsavory elements that sometimes crop up in other venues that I don't have control over. That's helpful. And I haven't had to be a dictator. I haven't had to throw down the ban hammer. I do. There's folks who request to join, and that do not get in. The mostly folks with accounts that were made the same day they're applying to join, which I take as a red flag that I don't think someone's signing up for Facebook in 2018 and the first thing they want to do is go to an Ask Lovecraft appreciation page. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm encouraging people to finally sign up for Facebook. Maybe Zuckerberg should really come and consider also supporting this program. But I doubt it. Yeah, mostly I'm sort of also on the lookout for too much runic paraphernalia, too much anything that's sort of Deus Volti. Lovecraft is a fascinating fandom, and it doesn't. I don't think it has more problematic elements than any other fandom, but it's certainly they're there. And people for whom his views are a feature, not a bug, as I often say. So that's it's just something I have to be aware of. And luckily, none of you charming people seem to have been secret Nazis. So thank you. Thank you for not being secret Nazis. It helps. It really does. I think we have a really charming community, a really charming place that we can kind of come together and just enjoy this weirdness in a fun and slightly different context. Lovecraft fandom, and I've talked about this before. If you go back and watch the Alex Houston interview, Lovecraft fandom is a weird thing, and I feel really weird because I'm not a Lovecraft fan. I'm not. I'm a Terry Pratchett fan. I'm a Susanna Clarke fan and a Neil Gaiman fan and a Lois Master Bajol fan. I'm a Deep Space Nine fan. These are things that I will gladly fan out on, and I will get into heated arguments about. I get into heated arguments about Lovecraft, don't get me wrong, but I don't like. I'm not arguing about the quality of his stuff or whether Mountains of Madness is better than Rats in the Walls or anything like that. And so coming into Lovecraftiana in a kind of orthogonal way, coming into it as an actor. This is I started doing Lovecraft as a character, as being in the stage play that Stephen Year wrote now almost 8 years ago, which is strange to think about. And doing the second iteration of that, that's really what got me interested in Lovecraft and what Lovecraft means to people. And it's also why I really kind of, make the dad face when people talk a lot about separating art from artists and trying to only focus on Lovecraft's writings. Yes, Lovecraft writings are fascinating and influential, and I think he definitely inspired a lot of folks, but Lovecraft himself is so fascinating, and we wouldn't have all these conventions, we wouldn't have all these film festivals, we wouldn't have this show if people weren't interested in him and who he is and who he was when he wasn't writing. And some of it is great. The work he did, encouraging young writers, encouraging young artists, the work he did connecting people. I mean, that's my, if I were to write the big book of Lovecraft, it would be about how he's this spider just, sending out these webs, interconnecting people together, sort of the web moderator of the 1920s and 30s, the forum moderator who's sort of creating conversation and giving a space for it through his letter writings. But he also wrote and said some pretty heinous things and, things that were heinous for the 1920s and 30s. And that's something I don't shy away from. And I'm really interested in not focusing on, but exploring and trying to wrestle with. It's something that I think is super necessary, not just when it comes to Lovecraft and fandom, but when it comes to politics, when it comes to religion. Something folks may or may not know, but I'm a Christian. I'm a sort of nondescript Protestant. My parents were Southern Baptist missionaries, and I grew up in the mission field of Nigeria. My full name is Ayobami Abiodun Lehman Richardson Tarpley Kessler, if you want to steal my identity. And I'm married to a priest. I'm married to an Episcopal priest, who is a professional Christian, as we like to put it. And you can't be a responsible Christian without dealing with race and dealing with the history of racism in American Christianity. I'm gonna plug a very non-Lovecraft related book, but it's called The Cross and the Lynching Tree, by James Cone. I hope I got that name right. And it's required reading, as far as I'm concerned, for all American Christians. It looks at race and religion very starkly, and how it's been ignored or shunted aside to the detriment of all, I think, religious persons, or even the non-religious, even just people who are studying American history and where we are now. I think it's super important that we understand just how toxic white supremacy and racism has been, and how it's deep in the bones of this country. So if folks kind of roll their eyes and talk about beating a dead horse when it comes to my talking about Lovecraft and racism, know that I'm not just beating a dead horse here. I'm beating the dead horse in all aspects of my life. And some of this is my dealing with being a fairly privileged white dude. Some of it's about growing up in West Africa, being minority, but not really. Being a white person in Nigeria, you have a certain privilege, and you are able to move through society, even as a child, in a very different way. And I had weird racial views coming out of that, right? I mean, it's a sort of colonial existence, living on a compound, sort of being very aware of being different and being an outsider, and being, I don't know, it's something that you have to deal with when you're a missionary kid or a third culture kid, as the folks like to say about us. And so if folks ever like, what does he keep going on about race? That's part of it. Like, this is something that's important to the country and the world. So that's why I go on and on about race. And that's how I do. So let's take a look over into the comments. Folks have been chatting up a storm. People talk about how Ask Lovecraft's appeal extends beyond Lovecraft fans. I've read much I haven't actually drunk that much of this. I've read much less Lovecraft than I've watched Ask Lovecraft. Well, at this point, there's maybe 1,000 episodes. So pound for pound, I think I'm getting there. But thank you. That's a very kind thing for you to say. And oh, sorry. People want me to post the link. So cross and the lynching tree. I think it's James Cone. The last name is definitely Cone. All right, okay, and I'm drinking more wine. I'm getting on. Come on, guys. Like, there's only so much I can do. So yeah, so that's a weird thing about my intro into sort of the Lovecraft world, and it's also been fantastic, right? You know, the folks who really very gently ushered me into the Lovecraft fan world have done so just out of kindness. You know, Mike Davis had me on his show, had me grilled by a panel of Lovecraft experts as Lovecraft, and sadly that video is lost to time and history. I was hoping, I was trying to find the original link of it, and it's gone. So I don't know if it's if his YouTube channel, if he did a purge of stuff, but I was very sad to lose that because it was, I don't know. It was one of my most challenging performance art exercises, having to do kind of a full 45 minutes as Lovecraft. And before I'd really done anything like that, you know, I'd played him on stage, and I'd done a little bit of work with Derek the Bard, you know, portraying him for his show, but I hadn't done the live shows yet. I hadn't done the real big sort of shows where I just stand in front of an audience and tell people to shoot. Elizabeth is asking, why did I choose to continue playing Lovecraft after the stage production wrapped? Well, that's due to Derek Burrow. Derek Burrow is another YouTuber, or he was a Twitcher. No, what was he on? He was on one of the other non-YouTube video streaming sites that eventually kind of crashed and died. But he had a whole show of, sort of reviewing books and games and movies. And he decided in the summer of 2012 that he wanted to do the Summer of Lovecraft. He was going to, he was going to, review just all the Laundry Files by Charlie Strauss. He was going to, review Necronomicon and, To Cast a Deadly Spell. That was the one I really loved. And a bunch of just, those crazy From Beyond, just the crazy 80s Lovecraft movies. And he thought it'd be fun because he knew Stephen Neer. I think they were all in like the Toronto LARP scene. And he had seen me do Monstrous Invisible, the Lovecraft play, and thought it'd be fun to have Lovecraft in his kitchen providing color commentary. You know, what? That was terrible. I can't believe blah, 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 things like that. And I thought that'd be fun. I didn't have a kid yet. I could randomly go to a stranger's house in the middle of the day and do some filming. And that's what I did. I went to this dude's house and I filmed these segments, and he put it out there, and I had fun. I really enjoyed it. It was fun playing this character again and playing him in a different format and in this kind of modern format. And so that put the kind of kernel in my head that I wanted to do something with this. And I've started and walked away from so many weird internet projects, blogs and other video series. My deep buried in the vaults of YouTube are my Christopher Walken theater videos, which if you're kind, maybe I'll share one of those in the comments after this or in the link. We'll see. They're pretty awful, but that was something I did. That was something I did at my bookstore to amuse people, pick up books and read them as Christopher Walken, mostly romance novels. That was a lot of fun. And let's see, what else did I have? Oh, I had a really bizarre blog for a while called Judging Creation. There was, what was it? There was this website that was called like it was going to be called like the Encyclopedia of Life or something like that. And they were just going to catalog every species or something. And so I decided that I would take their, random one of these, thousands of species and review them every day or every week. I can't remember what I did. And I judged them based on, what I thought they would taste like and whether they would fit well as a hat. And that was, no, Caleb, it was not called I'm Walking Here. It was just called Christopher Walken Theater. Very creative on my part. And yeah, and that completely died. Although I think that's out there somewhere. I think judgingcreation.blogspot is still there with all of its broken links because the whatever that website that I was basing it off of died. And what else did I do? I did some other crazy project. Oh, why can't I remember? Anyway, I've done a lot of just weird things. I reviewed board games and video games over at my entertainment world for a while. I would write occasional blogs for my theater company, Monkey Man Productions. So I just, I had this desire to do these things and play with these things, but nothing, but, I'd sort of do it for a month here, a month there. Now I remember my really successful pre-Ask Lovecraft Facebook project was Lies I Want to Tell My Children. Hoodilolly. Lies I Want to Tell My Children was a daily just nonsense Facebook page I created where I would just list lies. I just would come up with a different lie every day, and I would post it, and people would enjoy them or not. A lot of them were gross. I think my very first one is that headaches are spider eggs hatching behind your eyes. I had a lot of things about spiders in them. I got a spider fixation, as anyone who has ever had to play Dungeons and Dragons with me as the GM will know. But yeah, that took off. And this is before I had kids. That was my first sort of taste, my little amuse bouche of internet pseudo fame. And if anyone out there knows an illustrator who can make a decent facsimile of precious moment babies, I would love to do a page a day calendar of the lies I want to tell my children, at least with the select few of the lies I want to tell my children, because I think that could sell. I think that could actually be a real moneymaker. So these were sort of the various projects that I'd done and stuck with to varying degrees, not a great amount. But what finally kicked it for me to do this program was that I got a flip cam. And those of you who have heard the like, what happened to the flip cam story, I had a flip cam, which were these weird, like, it was before everyone had telephone, like phones in their cameras. And so you had this little device, and it was a camera, and it was very bare bones. Like you couldn't do anything more than just sort of film digitally, and it had a little USB plug that you then popped into your computer, and you could upload, and that was it. But I used the heck out of that thing, and my poor wife for a while was stuck holding it while I filmed, and then after this was back when it would take me 5-10 takes to do an episode, she was like, nope, you find someone else to hold this. I got things to do. I'm a priest. And so for a good long while, my cameraman was two tuffets stacked on top of each other with a group of DVDs sort of used to kind of hold the camera in place. And I would sort of go and like look in the camera and be like, okay, I hope I have the right angle. And then I would do my thing, and I'd look and be like, oh no, it slipped slightly. Oh, I got to film the whole thing over again. And all this was being filmed in front of my bed sheet, my old dark blue bed sheet, which some of y'all might remember from the early days. And that was my setup for a good long while, until I realized I could cut down production time in half by not filming in front of the sheet, because just trying to hang up the bed sheet so that it looked anyway decent without just super gross and like awkward, that would just take about 10 minutes, which I know that sounds sad, that Lehman hanging a bed sheet was the hardest thing he had to do for his show, but it was. And then I realized, wait, I can film in front of bookshelves because we had a nice library in the house. And so I started filming in front of the bookshelves. And then every house we've been in has had bookshelves that I can film in. And you can see behind me my little studio setup. And yeah, and that was June 2012. And 6 years later, hi guys. 3 a week. Why did I think that was a good idea? Why did I think 3 a week? I'll tell you why 3 a week was a good idea, or at least why I thought it was an idea. I used to be a big webcomic junkie. And, I had the 10 and the bookmarks that I had to click and go through. And it was untenable. but back in the day, I was reading PvP Online. I was reading Starslip Crisis, and two of those guys, Scott Kurtz and Christopher Straub, had a podcast called Webcomic Weekly, and they talked with Dave Kellett and Brad Geiger of Sheldon and Evil Incorporated, I think. Anyway, they were talking about making webcomics, but it was about the business of making webcomics and being a sort of a creative entrepreneur and how you dealt with advertisers and how you dealt with selling merch and how you set up a website. And I found that end of it. Matthew wrote briefly on Starslip. Awesome. I found that end of it so fascinating. I loved it. I don't know. I'm really intrigued by process. Some of you might also be, if you're interested in this bizarre behind the scenes, what have you. I also love Brood Hollow and Chainsaw Suit, also works of Christopher Straub. He's great. He's done so many great projects. His podcast he used to do with Dave Malky was one of my absolute favorites. I was really sad when that went away. Anyway, this will not turn into a Chris Straub fan cast because it very easily could. But for whatever reason, I think that was in my head, this idea of once you've set a schedule, you got to stick to that schedule and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, all right, well, they're doing 3 comics a week. So I could do 3 of these goofy shows a week. And that was the schedule I stuck to. And it's really hard. Not that it's hard. This show, as you may know, the production values on this show are not perhaps the highest they could be. Everyone's like, you should get a green screen. I'm like, I'm not going to get a green screen because then I would have to actually use it and edit. Although I did some editing on that last one. That was, with my children being used. And the faces, the mini faces bit, which I hope y'all saw that I posted the complete video of me making faces in a mirror to the Ask Lovecraft Appreciation Society. I know I could change the schedule, but I feel like I started this 3 a week and I got to stick with it. And if I go to 1 a week or 2 a week, then I'll be failing some deep entity that I don't know exists or not. So yeah. So, I wanted to make something that was low impact enough that I would keep at it, right? I mean, that's part of it. I know how lazy I am. Guys, I'm really lazy. I know 1,000 episodes doesn't seem like something that's really lazy, but it is because I make them cheaply. I'm just cranking them out. And yeah, so that's it's been a fascinating process. And again, because I'm sort of churning these out, and they're based on the sort of the weird inspiration I get, that it's this I think I want to work really hard on this, multiple takes and multiple angles, and I'm going to add music and sound effects, and blah, 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 and that will get 3 views, and then they'll be like, I'm Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and I think farts are delicious. 8,000 views. People coming out of the woodwork for farts are delicious. Tumblr can't get enough. Hashtag Lovecraft farts. It just there's no control over it, and in some ways that's liberating. Because it means I am not responsible for my own success or failure. And as a mediocre white dude, that's just how I like to be. I like to just, coast along as you do. And it's I don't know. Hopefully, it keeps me humble for when like things super take off and things are, you know, going crazy nuts. I mean, going to perform for George R. R. Martin last year, yes, last year was, I mean, it wasn't even a life dream because I didn't even think that was a thing you could do. That George R. R. Martin owns a theater and you could just go and perform for him and his friends. But that was amazing. That was, if nothing else ever happens, if the show, kind of dwindles away into, sort of quiet crickets, that will always be there. And I don't know. That's for, again, as someone who's not a Lovecraft fan, but who was a tough voyaging and Game of Thrones fan, at least Game of Thrones fan back in like 2013. That was huge. That was really big. And and the fact that I get invited out to conventions, that I've been able to go to Necronomicon, and I've been able to go to CthulhuCon and the HP Lovecraft Film Festivals. That's wild, guys. That's just really amazing. And you may be like, "What?" A lot of people goes to cons, and it's true. A lot of people do goes to cons, but I didn't. I didn't expect any of that. I mean, that's part of not having a 5-year plan. Is that when anything happens, it seems amazing, and I try to remind myself of that and remain grateful for all that you guys do for the show. This show exists because you guys are watching it. You guys are showing it to your friends. You guys are deciding you're going to try to watch every single episode, which you really shouldn't do. That's not good for your health. And, it's, if there's anything I want to parallel with Lovecraft and the work I do, it's that connecting people and being being something that's about people and never sort of losing sight of that. People talk about how Lovecraft was this massive misanthrope, and I think that's wrong. I think he was somewhat insular and maybe a touch agoraphobic, but he had an amazing circle that he nurtured. It was a very white circle, but Caucasian chalk circle maybe. But he nurtured it, and you don't spend your beans money on postage if you hate people. You just don't. Like I don't communicate. I mean, I guess through Facebook I communicate with hundreds of people, but I'm not writing letters to 100 people a day. And so, I think people lose sight of that. I think both Lovecraft detractors and Lovecraft fans lose sight of that. That ultimately what he did, was not just write Cthulhu stories, but, write in such a way that it drew people into him, that he was able to connect and was able to sort of, tie all together in a really fascinating way and create a legacy. Like we're still talking about this dude who starved himself to death. Cancer didn't help, but who low nutrition himself to make himself more susceptible, and yet all the while he was maintaining this connection with people. And I think that's important for all artists to sort of keep an idea of that and be aware of that sense of connection. And I try to, I try to be very aware of the amount of work other people put into my show, just through their own energy, their own emotional investment. And it's something that's easy to lose sight of. I can very much think of this as my show and I do this and I tack up my own, bed curtain up on the wall and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, I could have done, for a long time I was doing that. And it was just sort of me and 3 friends on Facebook sort of giving me some pity views. But once this really connected with people and people took an interest and people invested themselves into it, it's, that's what the show is. And that's I'm kicking myself that took me so long to kind of put together a group like this. It's weird being like, hey, who wants to be in a group all about my show? But it's about more than that, and it is about that sense of community. And I really hope you guys watching are enjoying that and feeling that. because that's what, for all the horrible, terrible things social media and the internet is doing to our planet and society and our government, it is bringing us together. And the one thing it's good at, we should be able to take advantage of. So thank you guys. I know I'm getting all sort of mawkish and sentimental, as I am wont to do, but it's true. I think and I think it's important to recognize that and to, call it out every now and then. So let me see if there's any other questions I missed. Oh, someone asked about board games. My favorite board games. I really like Seven Wonders. It's a game I can get my wife to play because she's really good at Seven Wonders. That's really up there. I always feel good at that. I love Balderdash, and I'm good at Balderdash. I understand that the way you get someone to vote for your definition in Balderdash is not to make the definition that sounds most likely, but to create the definition that people really want to exist in their heart of hearts. They hope that this green parrot that only speaks Mandarin is out there in the world, just making their life more magical. Let's see, what was I think my top scoring definition? It was Beyond Balderdash, so it had the dates and movies and people, and I defined a guy as the only executive at Hormel who voted against the production of Spam. And absolutely everyone voted for that guy because you want to believe that there was that one guy at the meeting saying, hold up. So that's so I'd love Balderdash, but I have not played that in way too long. And I need to, because it's my jam. Have I read Alan Moore and Jason Burroughs' Providence? I don't think so. I read a bit of the really gross one. Maybe that's not helping. The weird Alan Moore Lovecrafty thing, which had a lot of sexual assault with like fish people. Again, that's also not narrowing it down. I don't want to hate on Alan Moore. I like Alan Moore. I've got my I'm looking over here and I'm seeing my copies of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Watchmen. Like I think he's done Neonomicon. Thank you. I think he's done a lot, and he's taught a lot of people about his strange snake god, and I think that's important. But there's a certain generation of comic book writers, and they, while enjoyable when you are a 13-year-old guy, can be less enjoyable now. So yeah, that's what I got to say about Alan Moore. I appreciate what he's done. I appreciate him putting stuff out there. I don't ever want to read this. Was it Lost Girl? The book that's essentially like watching him and his lady friend like make love on multiple pages in comic book form, with like the weird penis Jabberwocky. Yeah, not interested in that. But hey, he does him. He is living his truth, and that's as long as he is respecting personal boundaries of others, that's really all we can ask of people these days, which is unfortunate. Absolutely unfortunate. Yeah. Like I said, well, again, and I am in many ways just sort of a textbook nerd, right? I've got my gaming books, I've got my entire Sandman run over there. Like I'm very much aware of and part of that whole sort of nerd fandom, what have you. Which is funny that I missed out on Lovecraft, aside from a few weird sort of smatterings before I started reading his books in my 20s. Because my early intro, and I always forget this when people ask me like, oh, where did you first run into Lovecraft and Cthulhu? I always think it was the Mythos card game from the 90s, the collectible card game, but it wasn't. It was, of course, Illuminati and Illuminati New World Order with the Servants of Cthulhu faction, which are totally broken and need to be nerfed. This is the hill I'm dying on, and will always die on when it comes to collectible card games from the 90s. So that's where I'm at. Cash me outside. Let's see. Do we have any other queries? Any other what have yous down the line? There we go. I've reminded someone about Illuminati New World Order. I have over 1,500 of those cards in my basement right now. I want to say I started alphabetizing them right after my daughter was born because I was getting sleep deprived and just needed to do something with my hands. That was a weird project. Anyway, but I got a whole bunch of those cards, and I will probably never play it again unless I can convince my children to play. And if I do that, the state might take me away. So there you have it. Oh yeah, the deities and demigods. So I had access to the deities and demigods D&D book because my brothers, who were also bog standard nerds, had tons of classic D&D stuff, and so that was just like lying next to my bed throughout my entire teens was a copy of deities and demigods. I'm sure I flipped through it, but if Cthulhu was there, it didn't make enough of an impact on me. I mean, I started playing Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green before I read Lovecraft as well in college. Man alive, I played a Delta Green game that was not great. the, the GM kept turning out the lights and sticking a flashlight under his face and playing the Crow soundtrack, and I was not comfortable being in that room. Oh, hello. So here we got a question. Mark has just started a YouTube thing and want to see if I had any advice. Well, get really comfortable with advertising. Don't make the same mistakes I did. No, I can't give advice on YouTube. Find something you enjoy doing and stick with it, because it's hard and it's weird, and people just, um, people just are all over the place. Um, you know, if I'd really wanted to corner, the Lovecraft market on YouTube, I would have had Lovecraft doing like unboxing videos, or Lovecraft doing even more ASMR. That's really that's where I need to start transitioning the show. And I know we had some requests tonight for ASMR, and if y'all are lucky, maybe we'll get there. Um, but just YouTube is so weird, and YouTube is like a series of tide pools, and you're in your own little tide pool, and you're working really, really hard, and you're eating up all the other like plankton, and you're growing out your phalangia, and you're becoming like nice and bulbous, and you think you're great, and then someone scoops you up and sort of shows you a tide pool right next to you, and it's 8,000 times bigger, and the things there have eye stalks, and you're like, what? I didn't even know eye stalks were a possibility. So, it's, going into Channel Awesome was a perfect example. When I was introduced to Channel Awesome, and told I should apply for it, when they were looking for new content, I was like, okay, I'll check out what Channel Awesome, guy with the glasses. Oh, whoa. Like, I saw, millions of views and just absolutely, out there, rankings and episodes that were just being, I never heard of these people, any of them. I was completely unaware, and now they're my friends, a lot of them, and that's really cool. But I did not know who these people were, and I was just sort of, in my own little tide pool and doing my own little thing. And again, you don't have control unless you've got an amazing marketing team working for you. Unless you can master algorithms. I've never figured out algorithms. I have been tagging each episode with Lovecraft and advice since 2012 and hoping people will find my show. And it is, it's weird. It's very strange. I hope the project that you have is something that is, unique enough and you enough that it stands out. That's a huge thing. People respond to personality. They respond to what you're putting out there. Although sometimes they don't. Sometimes all you have to do is talk about how, feminism is destroying the world and chemtrails. And you just say it sort of blandly, and people will give you, $140,000 a month for your Patreon. Again, there's absolutely no way I have found, no magic way of doing it. Again, doing stuff that you enjoy, stuff that doesn't make you cringe. Although that's hard because this stuff is etched into the digital stone here, until all the servers sink beneath the waves, and or get subpoenaed. And so, it's all out there, and you're going to go back and be like, oh, especially if you're doing impersonations and your voice changes over time because your impersonation is kind of changing as you're finding the character. And it is yeah, it's there's certainly some cringeworthy elements of of this program. Going back to some of those older ones is hard, although sometimes I go back and I'm surprised. The one thing about doing 1,000 episodes is you forget a lot of them, and then when you are reminded of one, like one pops up or someone's like, oh hey, like when people comment on videos from like 4 years ago and it pops up in my little notifications, I'm like, oh, what's that? Whoa, I did not remember doing this, but hey, look, back when Lovecraft was gaunter and had less of a Ohio dad bod going on. People should feel very happy that Lovecraft is finally eating well and it's showing on the show. So yeah, so I would recommend just getting your show out there, finding your audience, finding people. I mean, I remember when I started this show, I was like, all right, I need to really sell this show to people who love Lovecraft. How do I do that? I know. I'm going to Yahoo groups. That's where everyone's hanging out. Everyone's hanging out these days. So I was like, I'm going to go and do me some Yahoo groups. And that, but I think that actually panned out though, because I think someone on that Yahoo groups like mentioned the show to someone who mentioned it to Willem Pugmire, which is how Mike Davis found it. So like, again, weird things have this like knock-on effect. And it's completely out there, and YouTube is fascinating. I'm hearing, so there's a really fun conversation happening here about kind of ASMR and what people are doing with YouTube, and people talking about like doing stories on YouTube. YouTube has the potential, to really let you do some creative things, especially with storytelling, especially with narrative. All the nested things you can play with YouTube, there's hidden functionality kind of all throughout, and they've gotten rid of some of it. They used to be able to have a lot more like little boxes and clicky stuff, and I think as they've tried to make it more phone friendly and tablet friendly, they've gotten rid of a lot of that, which is unfortunate. But it's you can do some really interesting things, and there are some bizarre rabbit holes. What did someone just tweeted out that their favorite YouTube videos were high school English classes doing productions of Mice and Men. It's just stills of teenagers pointing a gun to the back of each other's head, which in this particular era in history is sort of awful. But as I remember doing those awful high school productions, and I would put those online for sure. Oh man, what did we do? We did a ridiculous animated version of Beowulf that I was part of. And then I did, what was it? It was Huckleberry Finn. But it was Huckleberry Finnovich because we set it in the Soviet Union. And so it was them trying to flee Soviet Russia. That was fun. And if that video is out there somewhere, maybe I'll see about if I can digitize it. You guys can see little old high school Lehman in all of his still just as pallid and awkward glory. So we are coming up to the end of our hour. And when I first asked folks what they wanted, I got asked about ASMR. So we may have a little bit of some soft voiced what have you. But someone had the really fun idea of a bedtime story. So it's getting late and y'all have a lot of work to do tomorrow. You got a lot of reading. You got a lot of, shenanigans to get up to. So I think go change into your pajamas and get your pillow. And we're going to just tell a little story. And just this can be, for now, just for the few of us still here in the conversation. But others can join in later. But yeah, this can be a little nighttime listening to help you just relax. Yeah, there you go. I could see you're getting nice and comfortable now. That's good. No, it's really important that you relax. You really need to think about your breathing. People really forget about breathing and how important it is, because breath's what energizes us. It's what gets us through the day. We don't even realize it. It's like all the friends in our lives, that are just breathing through us. They're breathing support. We have more than we realize, and they're always there. And our lungs are like just little spongy friends just sitting inside you, just helping you out, helping you get through things. I am like Delilah after dark. I also kept joking that I was going to say this was Ask Lovecraft, The Quiet Storm. Have a little like thunder effect that comes in. But that's not what we're here for. We're not here to talk about AM radio. We're here to talk about bedtime. So let's tell a little story. Once upon a time, you were going to be going to bed. You just settled down, got the covers over you, just feeling nice and warm after a really long, busy day. And that's when the pirates came. They came and they took you from the bed and they pulled you out of the house and they took you far, far away, further than you'd been before, past the old train tracks, past the abandoned church, past the forests that your parents told you never to go through. And they scared, but it was not the scared of a new situation or the scared of about to fall off a high object. No, it's that scared you get when your mom tucks you in and she turns out the light and she goes to the door and you see her silhouette, the light shining behind her, and she smiles at you and she says, "Good night, sweet dreams." And just for a moment, you wonder, is this the last time I'm ever going to see her? Is this the last time I'm ever going to see anything? That's the sort of fear you feel with these pirates as they tug you further, further away, further out into the beyond, past the night, on the other side of darkness. And they drop you off in a world you've never been before, a world that is soft and yet terrifying. Something about it is wrong. The colors are wrong. The light is wrong. You look up and you see a moon, but it's not your moon. It's not anyone's moon. And there in the soft, still wrongness, you feel yourself being pulled under, under, under. The weight of it, still soft and yet somehow crushing you. Down, down you go. And it seems like everything will stop. And that's when you hear footsteps outside and you hear the soft, reassuring voice of your mother laughing at something someone said. Maybe it's something on television. And you realize where you are, back safe in bed. For now. Sweet dreams.